Great afternoon to all. Welcome to the Education and Economic Development Subcommittee. We're in a different room. We'll call it to order now. So welcome to the Prince George's County Delegation Room. We're going to switch up the order a tad bit. We're going to start with the historic St. Mary's City Commission, and we're going to have analysis done by Ms. Elizabeth.
All right, thank you very much. I'll be presenting the fiscal 2026 budget analysis for Historic St. Mary's City Commission. Historic St. Mary's City is an outdoor museum, park, and archaeological site on the location of Maryland's first colonial capital city, and the commission oversees that park. The fiscal 2026 allowance increases about $94,000 to $7 million total, and a breakdown of the budget is in Exhibit 1 on page 2. Maintenance accounts for 23% of the budget. The commission is responsible for about 1,000 acres of property as well as the buildings on the site, including a number of reconstructions of buildings from various periods of the settlement's history. Research archaeology makes up about 21% of the budget. There are several sites that the team is actively excavating, including the recently rediscovered fort that was the first European settlement in the area. And people have also been living in the area for about 10,000 years, so archaeology is a big part of their mission. Public programming and administration each make up another 21% of the budget. Exhibit 2 on page 3 shows the proposed budget change. Personnel expenses are the largest area of increase. There are 7 contractual conversions in the budget, all for existing contractual employees who are being made regular personnel, which the commission believes that will help with employee retention. There are also items for archaeology equipment, museum exhibits, and consulting with the Piscataway tribe and others to demonstrate and interpret some of the history of the site. A new visitor center, the Maryland Heritage Interpretive Center, is expected to open in the spring or summer of early 2026. So a lot of work is being done now to prepare for that. Key observations begin on page 5. General admission increased slightly in fiscal 2024, as you'll see in Exhibit 3 on page 6. Recreational use was down, which the agency attributes in part to a better estimate of how many people are actually using the hiking trails, and also to the closure of the on-site bakery in July 2023, which had brought people to the site, and days with excessive heat in the summer of 2023 when the park had to close for safety reasons. The number of school tours also continues to be lower than pre-pandemic levels, and the commission is contacting schools to ask about why they haven't returned. Special fund revenues were also down, as you'll see in Exhibit 4 on page 7. These are revenues from things like ticket sales, site rentals, and donations. And DLS has asked the agency to comment on its efforts to secure non-state sources of revenue. The key observation 3 begins on page 6. This is an update on the implementation of recommendations from an audit that was conducted in March of 2023. The audit found a number of areas where the commission needed better oversight of cash management and more written policies and procedures. In response to last year's JCR, the commission submitted a report confirming that it had implemented all 9 of the recommendations from the audit. And the report included also a lot of the documentation and the written materials that have been developed as a result. The agency also conducted a confidential staff survey in the summer of 2024 that found generally high satisfaction with the work itself and the mission of Historic St. Mary's City, but noted a need for more training and development opportunities for staff and internal recognition. DLS recommendation is to concur with the budget as proposed, and you'll see that on page 9. That concludes my analysis, and I can take any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Any question for our analyst? No question. Awesome. We have our great team at the table here. Good to see you, the director, and you can introduce your team, and we can rock and roll.
Thank you, Delegate Harris. Members of the subcommittee, it's a pleasure to see you again. For the record, I'm John Seidel, Executive Director of the Historic St. Mary's City Commission. To my immediate right is Admiral Tim Healy, who is chair of the commission. To his right is our CFO, Doug Hunter, and to my left is our Chief Operating Officer, Pete Carocchio. You have my written testimony and a full agenda, so I'm just going to keep it brief here and highlight several points. First, we concur with the governor's budget, the analyst recommendations. We've enjoyed working with Ms. Weibel, who's asked a lot of really great questions that has been quite thorough. We're very well aware of the very tight financial situation facing the state, so we're grateful for the level of support in the proposed budget. I'd like to highlight just several observations that I think bear on the importance of operating support at this level. When I survey the landscape of living history museums around the country, a couple of things stand out to me. First of all, historic St. Mary's City is a remarkable place. Amazing resources, an archaeological record that's pretty extraordinary, and a real rich history of stewardship and education. The staff does cutting-edge archaeology, they deliver award-winning educational and interpretive programs, and really what they do is a national model. But as a follow-up observation, I will tell you that our museum accomplishes that with a very, very slender staff. I've laid out the numbers in my written testimony, but peer sites like Plymouth, like Jamestown down in Virginia, have anywhere from 4 to 7 times our staffing level. That means that we need every single position that we have, but we find that recruitment and retention is a challenge. In our region, many of our neighbors, Pax River Naval Air Station, contractors, businesses that have grown up around that base, offer compensation packages that are hard for us to match. The problem is particularly acute when we look at our contractual staff who work for hourly wages with very little in the way of benefits. So for that reason, this budget's 7 staff conversions are enormously important to us. It makes these jobs much more attractive, and we're much better able to retain and to recruit as a result. Shifting gears, the budget analysis asks us to report on what steps we've taken to secure non-state funding. As I hope my written response makes clear, that's extremely important to all of us at this table. It has not been a priority, to be honest, in past years at Historic St. Mary's City in the way that it probably should be. And as a result, we're very much in a rebuilding period. First, we needed to hire experienced fundraising staff. We did not have many of the processes and protocols for an active fundraising program. We had to acquire software and other tools that allow us to wealth screen, do those things that nonprofits or universities do on a regular basis. And we also needed to help the Historic St. Mary's City Foundation, our sister organization, rebuild its board and its policies. We're doing all of that. We have a good plan, we're executing it, but I want to emphasize that rebuilding takes time. It's a very big job. It's one that can't be done overnight, but we're committed to getting that done. One of the things that makes me really excited about our place is that even in lean times, heritage tourism can be a huge economic driver. In my written submission, I've given you some numbers that have been taken from our peers in Virginia. And as a native Marylander who really loves our historic resources and appreciates our heritage, I have to say that we just have never done as good a job in this state investing in that economic engine. They reap the benefits. We need to change that, and we want to change that at Historic St. Mary's City. We're convinced that as we lead up to the 400th anniversary of the founding of the state, which happened in our backyard in 2034, we have the potential to reap a huge economic windfall, while at the same time diversifying our regional economy, which needs it. We're really excited about that potential. We look forward to working with you to realize it. So on behalf of our staff and the tens of thousands of citizens and kids who visit us every year, thank you. We greatly appreciate your support and that of the Moore Miller administration. And with that, we're very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. And we also appreciate your details here on how to secure the efforts of non-state resources. I was taking a look at the details and the goals that you are setting here. So I think it's definitely a good start, and we're looking forward to how it would flourish moving forward. Any questions from the committee? All right. I think that concludes this particular budget hearing. Appreciate you. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks very much.
Please be safe. We're going to transition right into St. Mary's College of Maryland, and we're going to have our analysis done from Kelly Norton.
We're going to start on page 4 with Exhibit 1. It shows the undergraduate enrollment from 2019 to 2024. Total undergraduate enrollment increased by 28 students from fall 2023 to 2024. As is illustrated in the exhibit, the number of continuing students and transfer students has fluctuated since fall 2020. The number of first-time students decreased by 39 in fall 2020 to 2023 after 2 years of increases. Exhibit 2 on page 5 documents the changes in undergraduate applications. As illustrated in the exhibit, the number of applications grew in fiscal 2024, totaling 3,400. The yield rate, which is the number of students who actually enrolled from that total, has been under 20% since fiscal 2020. In fiscal 2024, the acceptance rate, or the green line, was 69%. Turning to Exhibit 3 on page 6, it shows St. Mary's out-of-state enrollment, which has seen a turnaround of declining numbers since 2020. There was a 7.4% increase of out-of-state students in 2024 compared to 2023. Moving to student performance, Exhibit 4 on page 7 provides the college's second and third year retention rates. The second year retention rate decreased to 81.4% for the 2022 cohort, and the third year rate decreased to 71.8% for the same cohort when compared to the previous year's cohort. Moving to Exhibit 5 on page 8, this exhibit shows the 4- and 6-year graduation rates for first-time, full-time students. As shown in the exhibit, the 4-year graduation rate decreased to 52.5% for the 2019 cohort compared to 2018, while the 6-year graduation rate has also fallen to 73.6% compared to the previous cohort. The president should comment on efforts to improve the 4-year graduation rates. Exhibit 6 on page 9 provides the 8-year graduation rate by Pell and non-Pell status. For first-time, full-time students, Pell students graduated at higher rates than their non-Pell counterparts. However, among full-time transfer students, non-Pell recipients had higher graduation rates. Moving to affordability and access, Exhibit 7 on page 10 shows the estimated cost of attendance versus the average net price for full-time in-state students by income level between fiscal 2021 through 2023. This exhibit shows that the cost of attendance will vary depending on income level. For instance, in fiscal 2023, it cost a student $3,618 with a family income of under $30,000, but $25,256 for a student with a family income of over $110,000. Exhibit 8 on page 11 shows the amount of institutional aid awarded and number of awards provided by category. The amount of institutional aid awarded has increased from $7.3 million in fiscal 2019 to $9.9 million in fiscal 2024. St. Mary's continues to have high rates of merit-based scholarships, with that category accounting for 64.8% of all institutional awards received by students in 2024. The U.S. Department of Education reports the median debts of graduates by field of study in an effort to give students a better picture of outcomes at the program level. Exhibit 9 on page 12 illustrates that the median debt of students ranged from $19,000 for natural resource conservation majors to $22,000 for economics majors. Computer and information science majors had the highest median earnings at $95,869. Exhibit 10 on page 13 provides the budget changes for unrestricted funds by program from fiscal 2024 to 2025. However, according to St. Mary's, the data represented for fiscal 2024 does not accurately capture its expenditures and revenues due to errors in closeout documents. By the time these errors were identified, it was too late to adjust the reported fiscal 2024 expenditures. The president should comment on the cause of the discrepancies and how the college will ensure accurate fiscal reporting in the future. The proposed fiscal 2026 budget found in Exhibit 11 on page 14 includes a general fund increase of $0.7 million when accounting for the contingent reduction. In total, when including fiscal 2025 salary increases, St. Mary's total state fund allocation increases by $2.2 million, or 5.7% relative to the adjusted fiscal 2025 working appropriation. Total funds will decrease by $3.2 million, or 3.4% relative to the fiscal 2025 adjusted budget. The birth of 2025 eliminates the funding formula for St. Mary's beginning fiscal 26. Language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill will reduce the general fund appropriation for St. Mary's by $416,847 contingent on the enactment of this provision. However, because there will no longer be a requirement for any set level of funding or calculation, the general fund appropriation could be greater or less than this amount in the foreseeable future. Under current law, state funding for St. Mary's is allocated through a funding formula that increases annual funding by inflation and requires the state to fund 100% of the cost of increases in health insurance costs and COLA for state-supported positions. Exhibit 12 on page 15 shows a decline in total enrollment that has begun to turn around with 2 consecutive years of enrollment growth. Those years of decline, coupled with the formula, has led to increased state funds per FTEs, as shown in Exhibit 13 on page 17. Between fiscal 2019 and 2024, state funds per FTEs has increased 51.9%. When looking at the same exhibit, two University System of Maryland institutions with a different funding mechanism than St. Mary's have experienced an increase in state support per FTEs as well, but at a higher rate. State funds per FTE spent at College Park increased 56% over the same period, while Salisbury University state funds per FTEs increased 106% from $7,129 in fiscal 2019 to $14,685 in fiscal 2024. Exhibit 14 on page 18 shows the growth in state support for the same three institutions during the same period. St. Mary's state support increased 57.7%. Similarly, state support for College Park grew by 56.3%, but Salisbury University's experienced the highest percentage change in this group, increasing by 66.7%. The trend data suggests that St. Mary's formula has not advantaged St. Mary's compared to peers whose funding was driven by discretionary decisions. Exhibit 15 on page 19 provides the unrestricted revenues by fund source from fiscal 2021 through 2026. In fiscal 2026, state funds increased to 49% of unrestricted funds compared to 44% in fiscal 2025. Personnel data can be found on page 20. DBM reports St. Mary's regular positions as 449 for fiscal 2025, but St. Mary's has self-reported that number as 407. The president should comment on what has led to the self-reported decrease in positions and why turnover expectancy is not accounted for given the high level of vacancies. Moving to the issues, which begins on page 21. The first issue examines the college's financial outlook. Exhibit 16 on page 21 shows the E&G expenditures and revenues. Expenditures continue to outpace revenues with the exception of fiscal 2021. In fiscal 2026, expenditures are expected to be $3.3 million more than revenues. St. Mary's has continued to have the second highest in-state tuition at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. Exhibit 17 on page 22 compares St. Mary's to other select four-year public institutions, and St. Mary's has consistently been more expensive. In fiscal 2025, St. Mary's is expected to cost $1,980 more than UMBC, the next highest institution. The second issue begins on page 23 and covers the college's latest fiscal compliance audit. In December 2024, the Office of Legislative Audits, or OLA, released an audit of St. Mary's covering the period from August 26, 2019 through July 15, 2023. There were three repeat findings. Finding 2, certain aspects of the procurement of the contract with a vendor affiliated with a state university, UMGC, raised questions about the propriety of the award. In addition, St. Mary's could not support changes to the contract terms. It did not adequately monitor the contract, resulting in cost overruns. Finding 6, St. Mary's did not use available output reports of residency changes made on its automated student account system to ensure that only authorized and supported changes were made. Finding 7, St. Mary's did not perform verifications of collections to deposit, did not always deposit collections in a timely manner, and did not segregate duties as required. In addition to the 3 repeat findings, OLA identified potential ethics violations surrounding the propriety of procurements and payments to a vendor that was also a second employer of the management employee involved in the procurement process. The president should comment on what actions have been taken to address the findings of the December 2024 audit report. The president should also specifically comment on what actions have been taken regarding the audit's repeat findings and repeat recommendations. DLS operating budget action is found on page 26, and that is to concur with the governor's allowance. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Norton. Greatly appreciate that. Any questions for the analyst? All righty. Good to see you, Madam President. Good to see you. Hopefully you're having a great, productive week, and we're excited to hear from you today.
Well, good afternoon, Chair Harris and members of the committee. It's always great to be seen and to be here. It's a beautiful day today, so of course I've had a great week. Anytime you wake up, you can feel your feet touch the ground, it's all good. So with me today are Paula Collins, Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees, and Brandon Engel, our Director of Government Affairs. As always, thank you for your support of St. Mary's College. And before I begin, I would like to invite Trustee Paula Collins to say a few words.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Harris and members of the subcommittee. My name is Paula Collins, and I've been a trustee of the college for the past 6 years. I am currently the vice chair, and the Government Affairs Liaison for the board. I want to begin by underscoring that the board continues to be highly engaged with the senior leadership of St. Mary's College, especially this year as we prepare for a presidential transition following President Jordan's retirement at the end of this academic school year. Our search committee received more than 70 excellent applications for the position during the search process, which demonstrates the quality and appeal of the college as an institution and its commitment to excellence, accessibility, and diversity. It also speaks volumes about the reputation the college enjoys, which has only grown under President Jordan's leadership. She has been an exceptional leader, visionary, and doer. We are immensely proud of the work that has been done under her leadership to advance the college's academic character and reputation among its peers, while always grounding our approach in what's best for the students. We also recognize that our sustained level of excellence could not be possible without the tremendous support from the legislature, including your unanimous decision to update and reaffirm our statutory funding formula during the 2017 legislative session. This formula, which was originally codified in 1992, is essential to sustaining the college's success. And on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to express our deepest gratitude to you for your ongoing support for the college. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I also want to thank Kelly and DLS for an excellent analysis of the college. And I want to say that I'm going to just say that you wore St. Mary's colors today in honor of this being my last hearing. So thank you for that. So more than ever, higher education is an interesting and complicated space, and you have done well to understand us. Thank you. So each of you have been provided with an overview of the college in our written testimony, as well as specific responses to the analyst questions. I will not read it verbatim, of course, but I will reference exhibits and highlight key issues during our presentation. Please know that we are grateful for the governor's FY26 allowance, as well as the recommendation from DLS to concur with that allowance during these challenging times for the state. We understand the need to tighten the state's belt in exceptional circumstances, and we continue to be willing to do our part. I also want to thank you for your support in updating and reaffirming our formula in recent years. As noted in the DLS analysis, the revised formula has continued to work well, closing funding disparities between St. Mary's College and other institutions of higher education in the state, and enable us to serve students in accordance with our mission. I want to start with a brief discussion of the college's enrollment. As noted in the analysis, enrollment at the college has been a concern since my arrival in 2014. I am pleased to tell you that we have not only stabilized our enrollment, but we have turned the corner back to growth. As shown in Exhibit 1 of our written testimony, overall enrollment at the college has increased by 13% from fall 2020 to fall 2024. We attribute this growth to both our ability to recruit strong incoming classes of first-year and transfer students, as well as our strong retention rates. As shown in Exhibit 2, our entering classes grew by more than 11% from fall 2020 to fall 2023. We were negatively impacted by the flawed rollout of the simplified FAFSA, as almost all institutions were. However, the fall 2025 admission cycle suggests a continued rebound. The college is also engaged in a variety of initiatives to strengthen and enhance its position in the higher education landscape, including implementation of the LEAD core curriculum, development of new majors, and the launch of nationwide marketing efforts, all of which you have heard me discuss in previous years. However, to demonstrate the quality of our strategic planning and execution, I do want to note the success of our marine science and business administration programs. In just 3 short years, these majors have grown to become the college's second and third most popular majors among incoming students. Together, these initiatives have made St. Mary's College more relevant and more competitive. As shown in Exhibit 3, applications to the college have grown by 22% over the past 5 years and have more than doubled since our baseline year of 2019 from 1,621 applications to 3,401. Moving on to access and affordability, the college's mission to balance these principles with the provision of an excellent liberal arts college remains challenging. We continue to implement institutional efforts to identify efficiencies and control expenses, and coupled with your support, we have been successful in keeping St. Mary's College affordable for Maryland students. As shown in Exhibit 4, tuition was frozen for the 6th consecutive year beginning in fall 2024 without state relief funding. It remains less than it was 12 years ago. Turning now fully to our DLS analysis, the college was asked to comment on efforts to improve the college's four-year graduation rates. As you all are aware, St. Mary's College proudly maintains some of the highest retention and completion rates among its peer institutions, both in comparison to our public in-state peers and among our private peers. As retrospective analysis intended to do, the impact of COVID-19 on our students is accurately captured. However, I want to note for the committee's consideration that our real-time metrics have recovered to pre-pandemic levels. This includes a 5% year-over-year improvement in retention for all students to 86%, as well as a recovery in our four-year completion rates to approximately 60% as of last year. We also remain committed to constant innovation and improvement. One of our most recent initiatives, which has empowered more students to complete their education within a traditional four-year timeline, is the inclusion of a winterim session in the college's permanent academic calendar. This condensed session offers remote courses between fall and spring semesters and enables students to either catch up or get ahead of their credit requirements for majors and minors. Since its permanent inclusion in the course catalog a few years ago, winterim has steadily reduced the percentage of St. Mary's students who have fallen off track for timely graduation. The college has also launched the Seahawks Success Network to foster student persistence and academic excellence. This initiative provides every single student with both a designated academic and a co-curricular advisor, as well as an assigned counselor within the offices of Student Success Services and Student Financial Aid. These advisors serve as a clear point of contact for institutional resources, and their direct relationship with students establishes a sense of investment from the college in each student's education. Moving on to more technical matters, DLS asked for comment on an accounting discrepancy in this year's budget books, as well as vacancy discrepancies between DBM and DLS data. I want to assure you explicitly that the accounting issues identified in the analysis are the result of classification errors between individual salaries and programmatic categories, not actual changes or misstatements of college spending. In other words, salaries that should have been attributed to instruction or public service last year were instead attributed to student services, institutional support, and plant maintenance. Once these errors were identified by the college, our Business and Finance Division worked closely with DBM to correct them. Those corrected figures have been shared with DBM and DLS, and with the implementation of our new enterprise resource planning system, augmented by the presence of new and experienced staff, the classification and reconciliation process for expenses will not be a problem going forward. With regard to vacancy data, St. Mary's currently employs 449 individuals in regular positions, and 407 of those positions were filled as of December 31st, 2024. Combining the 407 filled positions with the 49 vacant positions, the discrepancy between total positions reported by DBM, which is 449, and total positions reported by St. Mary's, which is 456, is very small. This is in part due to newly proposed positions at St. Mary's College that have not yet been approved or funded, as well as a slight inflation to the vacancy rate due to interim appointments. Once new positions are approved and interim appointments are made permanent, this discrepancy should be eliminated. Finally, with regard to the 2024 audit report, the college has expeditiously implemented corrective actions, including both personnel and policy actions. These include the appointment of a highly experienced interim vice president for business and finance, as well as both a new associate vice president for finance and a new procurement officer. We have also revised written agreements with identified entities, updated procedures to verify student residency changes, and implemented a new policy related to cash collections as detailed in our written testimony. These actions, as well as additional corrective actions related to redacted findings, will be completed no later than the end of FY25. With that, I know we have much more ground to cover today, so this will conclude my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee, but would otherwise take the opportunity to thank you once again for your support of St. Mary's College. Thank you.
We thank you for the service that you provided to the St. Mary's College for so many years, President Jordan. We thank you. We appreciate you. Leadership is not easy, and we appreciate the leadership that you have shown throughout these many years, and we greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.
Delegate Forbes.
May I second that motion? Dr. Jordan, you've come before us for a decade, and you're always with grace and always with your students' best interests at heart and advocating for St. Mary's, which during the COVID, being the college president wasn't easy. The only sector harder hit than education was healthcare, and you led that through with grace and the emerging back out of it and adding new majors and protecting the gem that is St. Mary's. So recognizing it, protecting it, and enhancing it and making it an amazing place. So thank you for your leadership. We really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so very much. And I do want to acknowledge that I have a bunch of my superstar students here today,
Well,
and they've been turning out. Look at that. Thank you. Thank you. I miss you as a citizen. I will say that. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. We know that St. Mary's College produced a lot of great students. I had one of my legislative aides last year, Mr. Nicholas, did a great job, did so great of a job, he left me and ended up becoming the chief of staff to the vice chair of ECM. And so we know that St. Mary's College produced some quality people, so we greatly appreciate that. Any other questions from our committee? Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And that concludes our budget hearing for St. Mary's College. We'll move to Townsend University, and we have Sarah Baker.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Bit 1 on page 4, which shows the trends in first-time applications. The drop in applications in 2015 was due to Towsend's decision to stop using the Common App due to a lot of applications were from students who had no intention of attending Towsend. The increase you see in 22 is due to Towsend's decision to go back to using the Common App and continued test optional admissions. Since then, the number of applications steadily increased to almost 21,000 by fall 24. Exhibit 2 on page 5 shows the fall 24 enrollment declined by 1.5%. This is the 6th year of enrollment decline, which was primarily driven by the decline in continuing students. The number of transfer students declined by 3.5% and since 2019 have fallen by 31.7%. After experiencing its largest first-time classes, students of over 3,023, the number slightly decreased to 2,974, which Towsend attributes to the challenges related to the rollout of the FAFSA simplification form. Overall, at 16,270 undergraduate students, enrollment is down 17.1% from fall 2019. We asked the president to comment on the causes for the continuing decline in students, and in particular transfer students, and efforts being taken to stabilize enrollment and retain students. Turning to Exhibit 3 on page 7 and retention rates. After remaining stable at 87%, the second rate has declined to 83% with a 22 cohort, and the third-year rate for this cohort fell to 67%. And this may reflect the impact of the pandemic and challenges faced by this cohort from spending their senior year in a virtual environment and having to adjust to life on campus and in-person classes. Neither rate has yet returned to pre-pandemic levels. Exhibit 4 on page 8 shows the 6-year graduation rates. And overall, the graduation rates for all students has remained stable around 75%, and that for minority students around 73%. After decreasing to 69% with the 2017 cohort, the rate for African American students has improved to 72% with the 2019 cohort. So a key factor to improve student success and access is access to financial aid, and to that end, in Exhibit 5 on page 9, shows the total expenditures on institutional aid grew by 24% to $37.3 million in '24. While spending on need-based aid declined during the during the pandemic in '21 and '22, expenditures increased by $4 million in '23. Overall, need-based aid accounts for almost 57% of expenditures. Students receiving aid are more likely to graduate and persist, and this is illustrated on Exhibit 6 on page 10. And as you see, those receiving institutional aid graduate at a higher rate than those who do not receive aid. Exhibit 7 on page 11 shows undergraduate degree production, which has continued to decline to a little under 4,000 in '24, reflecting the continued decline in enrollment and the effects of the pandemic. Since 2020, the number of health professional degrees has fallen by 20%, which Towson attributes to a combination of factors, including discontinuation of programs, declining interest in public and healthcare professions post-COVID, and a decline in enrollment in their nursing program. Exhibit 8 on page 13 shows changes in unrestricted expenditures by program area between '24 and '25. Overall, spending increases 7.4% or $39.9 million. The 78.4% increase in operation and maintenance of plants is due to a variety of factors, including a transfer to fund balance, increased spending on facility renewal, contractual service, and the opening of a new facility. Decreased spending in other program areas are related to a change to better manage vacancy rate by increasing the budgeted turnover for each division. The proposed budget is on page 14, and then on Exhibit 9, you'll see that state funds decreased 7.1% or $14.8 million when excluding the impact of the '25 general salary increases in '26 that are not in the '25 budget. Towson receives about $600,000 for the opening new facility, and that is partly offset by the removal of $500,000 for 2 legislative aids. We asked the president to comment on what actions will be taken to cover the reduction in state funding. Turning to funding per full-time equivalent students on page 15. As shown on Exhibit 10, after remaining fairly stable from 2017 to 2019, state funding per full-time equivalent student grew almost 11% to $7,039 in 2020, and continuing to increase through the years to $12,756 per FTES in '24. And this is due to various factors, including 4 years of general salary increases, restoration of the BPW cut in '21, coupled with a declining enrollment. This result in state funding exceed tuition and fees per full-time equivalent student in '23 and '24. The recommendation is on page 17 to see the USM overview for system-wide recommendations, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. Any questions for our analyst? All right, it's good to see you, Mr. President. I know Delegate Ford is probably even more excited than us to see you.
Particularly after that basketball game last night.
We appreciate you and your
Thank
team.
you. Thank you, Delegate Harris and members of the subcommittee. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you today, and I'm also pleased to thank Sarah Baker, our colleague, for her comprehensive and very informative analysis about TU. Joining me today at the table is our Chief Financial Officer and my colleague, Ben Lowenthal. I want to introduce him. And as we articulated in our supplemental materials, TU's momentum has continued to accelerate, and we have great pride in what has been occurring in our university. In recognition of the quality of our academic and student success services, we especially the demonstrated accomplishments of our students, I might add, last fall, we're very, very proud that the Wall Street Journal named Towson University the #1 public university in the state of Maryland and the number 15 public university in the nation. Very, very proud of that. It's a testament, I believe, to the transformative impact that we provide our community each and every day, and we'll continue to do that. Indeed, all of us at TU are very proud about and pleased with these important recognitions of our university, but there's one more that we're also very proud of, that we again have been named by Washington Monthly as one of the best Buck universities in the country, being a great value for our students and for their families. TU's education is both top-ranked, but also accessible and affordable, things to be very proud of. TU is also an anchor for our community and for our state. We pride ourselves on being what we often call a steward of place. And I often say that there are many great universities in Maryland. At TU, we strive and we're proud to be a great university for Maryland. We're an engine of opportunity where success is possible and success is within reach for everyone. Of our nearly 20,000 students, nearly 90% come from Maryland, and 60% identify as being members of a racial or minority group. We are proud that our student demographics are a direct reflection of our state's population. In addition, 20% of our undergraduate students are first generation, the first in their family to attend college. And more than one-third of our students receive federal financial assistance, primarily through the Pell Grant program. But we're also a catalyst for workforce development in our region. Nearly 92% of our recent alumni are currently employed in our region. We're an engine of economic development. They work in some of our community's highest need fields. In fact, TU educates more teachers and more healthcare workers at the undergraduate level in Maryland than any other university, and we continue to have the largest college of education in the state. We also become a national leader in cybersecurity, another high-need field in our community, and in computer science, a high-need field throughout the region. TU also serves as a national leader in entrepreneurship and also community engagement, thanks to our respected startup at the Armory, our community incubator and accelerator, which recently was named one of North America's top university-linked economic development programs. Very proud of that. TU shares the state's unwavering commitment to P-12 education. Last year, with the support of the General Assembly, we became the state home for Maryland's community schools with the TU Center for Community Schools, one of the 5 vital pillars, by the way, of the blueprint for the future of Maryland. We also have launched teacher induction partnerships with Carroll County Public Schools, with other public school induction partnerships on the way. These partnerships, by the way, help to support new teachers entering the workforce to enhance their retention in our local our communities in the state. And finally, but not least importance, just days ago, TU was recognized by the Carnegie Commission and the American Council on Education as a designated research college and university. And this is a very, very important recognition of TU as a respected, comprehensive public research university. A university just as committed to teaching and student success as we are to research, scholarship, and the creative arts. And as president, I'm particularly proud of this. Our faculty, staff, and students are conducting highly consequential, highly impactful research, work that will help to solve many of the grand challenges we face today and will face in the future in our society. And much of TU's research, an increasing portfolio of research, is supported by external funds. Your support, the support of the General Assembly, has been integral to the demonstrated achievements of TU and remains fundamental to our continued trajectory of positive success. Your investment in Towson University is an investment in Maryland's future. We thank you for your support of our university, and we're very, very grateful for it. Now, let me address a couple of things that were mentioned in the analysis and report. One is strategies to address a reduction in state appropriation. And yes, like all agencies of government, we are prepared to take a modest reduction in state appropriation. In our case, it's about 5% of the state appropriation. About 34% of our budget comes from directly in state appropriations, so that means a cut in our budget of a little more than around 2%. I believe that we cannot cut ourselves into prosperity. We must blend a combination of responsible cuts in expenditures with increases in revenue. And we're pleased that we're well poised to do that. We have the largest number, and Sarah mentioned this, of first-year applications in the history of the university. For the last 3 years, we've admitted and enrolled the largest freshman first-year classes in history. Last fall was the second largest, the year before the largest ever, and we believe we're poised to enroll this fall the largest in our history. That's really important, but what's just as important is the increasing rate of retention of our students. With from fall to spring retention this year, we have a 90% retention rate, up from 87% just 2 years ago. These are really, really positive metrics. We also plan to have a modest increase, a small increase in enrollment next year in transfer students, and that's been one of the real challenges we face. In terms of reducing expenditures, we plan to do a couple of things. One, we certainly will tighten our belt, as every agency of government will do. It won't be easy, but it's doable, and we will do it responsibly. We'll do it responsibly without disrupting the services we provide to our students. Because at Towson University, we believe that students come first. And everything we do has to be through the lens of what's best for our students, for their success, for their achievement, and their ability to enter the workforce in our state. We'll also pause but not freeze hiring, because I believe a hiring freeze is really not in the best interest of the success of our students. But pausing hiring so we can look carefully, systemically, and hopefully with an eye towards the best interests of our university for every position, and to keep positions open for as long as we can will also save some money. So a combination of factors will help us, we believe, to meet this 5% reduction in state appropriation. Now to the interest and the issue of enrollment decline that Ms. Baker mentioned also. I want to mention at the outset that one of the areas for enrollment, the major challenge we've had in enrollment decline is not first-year enrollment. It's not retention of our students. It's the enrollment of transfer students to Maryland's universities across the board. TU is I think, the largest recipient of transfer students in the state. I think I'm right about that. And we've seen a significant reduction in enrollment in the community colleges in the state. We've seen that trickle down. That enrollment decline began during COVID. It's continuing. This is the last year, we believe, of significant enrollment declines, but that enrollment decline has been palpable, meaningful, and dramatic in terms of its impact on the university. I'm very pleased to have been appointed as the co-chair of a task force in the state to look at transfer issues. I chaired that task force with Felicia Williams, my colleague who's the president of Prince George's Community College, and we're doing many things in the state to try to make transfer between the two-year community colleges and our four-year institutions, both at the University System of Maryland and our private institutions in the state, to be more seamless, to be more successful, and to be more powerful. At TU, we have something called the Tiger Transfer Pact, which is an articulated program now with most community colleges in the state. And as I mentioned, we're very pleased to have had the largest application pool, the largest freshman class, an increase in transfer enrollment, but we've also seen a dramatic and significant increase in graduate enrollment at TU, driven in large part by what we call the Towson Learning Network, which provides advanced graduate level training for the teachers of the state of Maryland, both on-site and virtually. Very proud about that too. So we believe that all of these strategies together will help enrollment to continue to grow modestly, not geometrically, but certainly arithmetically over the next couple of years as we continue to boost enrollment and to train more and more of the citizens of Maryland to take the important, meaningful jobs in the state. So with that, let me conclude my report, take any questions that you might, and again to say that it's the greatest honor of my life, the greatest honor of my career to serve as president of this great university.
Thank you, Dr. Ginsburg.
Thank you, Delegate Forbes.
I really appreciate all the work you do and the enthusiasm you bring to campus and the way that you touch student lives. You're at everything I go to. If there are students there, you're there, and so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I was going to ask you about transfer students, but you really knocked that out of the park. I will ask you about, you had a program to recruit more diverse students into healthcare professions. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, we're very hopeful about that. You know, we do have several federal grants. We have 5 federal grants from the National Institute of Health. Each of those grants, we believe, are vulnerable to the what I believe, tragic circumstances coming out of our nation's capital. Each of those grants had indirect cost structures at the National Institute of Health level. Many of them are now being reduced significantly. Of our grants to the National Institute of Health, by the way, nearly all of them are grants that provide opportunities for minority students as well as women, not just men, to enter the healthcare workforce by being trained at TU. Those grants are being jeopardized. And so I think we need to do everything we can to try to propel forward opportunities for all of our students, certainly minority students from the state of Maryland, to have opportunities to come and train at TU and our other great universities in Maryland. But that's a struggle. I will say, though, that one of the things that Sarah Baker pointed out, and she's right to do this, is we did see a decline in our nursing program and a decline in our health professions program. Our nursing program, now that we've opened our new building, actually is growing and growing really rapidly. But the decline we've seen that was pointed out by Ms. Baker's in our athletic training program, a high need field in the state. But athletic training has moved from an undergraduate program to a graduate program. We don't admit students into an undergraduate program anymore. There are no more undergraduate athletic training programs. So that's one of the reasons that data was as it was.
So a student who wants to go into the graduate program in athletic training, what would they major in as an undergraduate?
Probably in most cases, kinesiology or athletic exercise science come from the pre-med kind of areas of chemistry, biology, and other pre-med factors. But many of them come to us from our exercise science program. And some come into a 5-year program that's an articulated program from our exercise program right into AT.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Sure.
I appreciate
Thank you
your
very much.
testimony, and I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate the good work you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Great honor.
We appreciate you. We appreciate Delegate Forbes as well.
One more question.
We all do.
How many people were in your basketball arena last night?
So last night, our basketball team won the outright championship of the Coastal Athletic Association with a dramatic 20-point victory over William & Mary, having been down by 11 points at halftime. But we had the largest crowd in the history of TU Arena last night on our campus. So we're very proud
I
of that.
think that's because you were
Go
honoring
Tigers.
the Dumbarton Middle School Teacher of the Year.
I think it's something to do with giving away hockey jerseys and the reduced price on beers, but we won't talk about that.
I'll see you there Saturday.
Go Tigers.
I didn't get no invite.
Thank you very much.
No, we appreciate you. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you so much. We appreciate you all.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our budget hearing for Townsend University. We're going to transition straight over to Frostburg State University, and we still have our great analyst, Sarah Baker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to start with Exhibit 1 on page 4, which shows the trends in first-time applications. Their increase in 2020 was due to applicants who applied through the Common App, but however, most were not likely to attend Frostburg. After a 2-year decline, the number of applications has grown to over 5,024. And Frostburg attributes this to a number of factors, including a partnership with a student search firm, implementation of a direct admit program, and creating a more robust communications campaign. Exhibit 2 on page 6 shows fall enrollment, and after 7 years of decline, grew in fall 23 and 24 to over 3,400. In 23, the number of transfers grew by 152 students, which is attributed to greater physical presence at the community college, launch of an online LPM program, and a scholarship program targeting transfers. The number of first times increased in 23 due to a number of factors, including targeted events, reducing decision times to 48 hours, and early scholarships and financial aid. Overall, since 2015, when Frostburg experienced its highest enrollment of over 5,000 undergraduate students, it has almost lost a third of its undergraduate population. Turning to Exhibit 3 on page 7 in retention rates, the second and third year rates started to decline with the 2019 cohort, which may reflect the impact of the pandemic. And the second year retention rate is increased with the 24 cohort, which reflects the increased enrollment. However, neither rate has returned to pre-pandemic levels. Exhibit 4 on page 8 shows the 6-year graduation rates. And the 2015 cohorts achieved the highest rates, and they were one of the last to graduate before the pandemic. Since then, the rates of all the groups of students have declined, with the achievement gap widening with the 2019 cohorts. Moving on to institutional aid on page 9, Exhibit 5 shows total expenditures, which grew 47% to $9.2 million in fiscal '24. Expenditures on need-based aid fell 56% 6% from $4.2 million to $1.8 million in '24, while that spent on merit scholarships grew by 126% to $4.8 million. So we asked the president to comment on the decline in spending on need-based aid. Now, previously, as I mentioned, students receiving aid are more likely to persist and graduate. And again, this is illustrated in Exhibit 6 on page 7. And as with the Towson analysis, you'll see those receiving institutional aid graduate at a higher rate than those who did not receive aid. Exhibit 7 on page 11 shows undergraduate degree production, which has declined from 1,078 in 2019 to 818 in '24, reflecting the continuing decline in enrollment and the effects of the pandemic. Since 2019, the number of health profession degrees awarded has dropped by 31%. So we asked the president to comment on factors leading to the decline in the number of health profession degrees awarded. Exhibit 8 on page 13 shows changes in unrestricted expenditures by program area between '24 and '25. And overall spending decreased by 0.7% or around $800,000. And decreases primarily are related to realigning the budget, adjusting for spending on facilities and debt service. And the increases are related to general salary increases. Turning to the proposed budget on page 14 in Exhibit 9. State funds decreased by 0.1% or $1.3 million when you exclude the 25 salary increases in '26, which actions will be taken to cover the reduction in state funding. Turning to funding per full-time equivalent student on page 16, as shown on Exhibit 10, state funding per FTES has grown by 102% or $9,265 per FTEs. And this can be attributed to the continuing decline in enrollment, which has fallen 34% from 2017 to 2024. And starting in 2020, salary enhancement, restoration of BTW cuts in '23. The first issue of Frostburg's plan to eliminate a structural deficit starts on page 18. So as previously mentioned, Frostburg has been struggling with its enrollment, and this is illustrated in Exhibit 11. It should be noted that since 2010, FTE enrollments has fallen by 36%, while the number of faculty FTEs has decreased by 14%. The continuing enrollment decline has created budgetary challenges as Frostburg needed to find ways to cover the loss of tuition and fee and auxiliary revenues, which is shown on Exhibit 12 on page 19. As you see, prior to 2017, state funding and tuition and fee revenues were basically equal, but by '22, state funding increased by $3.8 million, and tuition and fee revenues fell by $5.1 million. Since 2022, state funding has grown by $15 million, mainly due to general salary increases, which totaled $9.2 million. And also, auxiliary revenues had declined by $4.2 million. I just want to note that the state does not provide funding for salary increases for non-state supported positions, which for Frostburg are primarily related to auxiliary enterprises, so they need to find revenue to cover these salary increases. All these factors result in a $7.7 million structural deficit in fiscal '25. So the key to resolving this deficit is to stabilize and increase enrollment, and to that end, Frostburg implemented a strategic enrollment management plan. Last May, they added $50,000 to the admission and marketing budget to increase enrollment for fall '24, which had yielded positive results. In '25, they're doubling their budget so as to increase efforts to diversify their enrollment initiatives. In addition, Frostburg developed an Education Market Alignment Plan, or EMAP, that will result in an expected surplus of up to $3 million in '25. Also, Frostburg projects a surplus of $3.3 million in '26, but this will be offset by the 5% reduction to their appropriation. Exhibit 13 on page 21 summarizes EMAP's metrics with goals and savings to date. As you see, the key elements of the plan include university and unit operations reduction, administrative reorganization, athletics, revenues from increased enrollment, and faculty retrenchment. And this is where they hope to see most of their savings. About $4.9 million will be realized. It should be noted that USM does have a policy that specifies faculty entrenchment process to ensure protection of faculty members. And as part of the process, Frostburg formed a planning committee charged with devising a plan that was submitted to the president for approval and amendment. So by the start of fall 25 semester, Frostburg plans to reduce 30 faculty positions, and these will include full-time non-tenure track faculty, adjunct faculty, tenure track faculty, all with less than 2 years of service. By spring 26 semester, the target is to reduce another 15 faculty positions, and that could include tenure track and tenure track faculty with more than 2 years of service. We asked the president to comment on the progress of implementing EMAP, and in particular, the status of faculty re-entrenchment, and on why the budget assumes transfers of fund balance of $1.5 and $1 million in 25 and 26 if the plan is to have a structural surplus in these years. The recommendation is on page 23, and that is to see the USM overview for system-wide recommendations. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. We greatly appreciate that. Any questions for our analysts? All right, good to see you. For our interim president that's here, we thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to make this travel down to here. So the floor is yours and your team.
Thank you, Vice Chair Harris. Members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on the Frostburg State operating budget to the committee. And I also want to thank legislative analyst Sarah Baker. She has done, again, an outstanding job, I think, of reviewing our situation and asking very poignant questions about how to go forward. In the interest of time, we have submitted very detailed testimony, written testimony to the committee, and I am going to comment on a couple of those issues rather than go into detail on the entire testimony. But I also want to introduce to you, to my left, Troy Donaway, who is our Vice President for Administration and Finance at the university. The university has had some struggles of late. We think we have begun to turn the corner on those struggles, both financial and in terms of enrollment. We have seen for the third year in a row increases in our enrollment. And we have, believe we have solved the financial troubles that we have had in recent years. As Sarah Baker has mentioned, we have seen over the last roughly decade a decline in our enrollment of 36%. That's the equivalent of 1,700 students for us. 1,700 students for us equates to about $17 million in revenue decline over that period of time. We have also seen an attrition from our faculty of about 14%. That delta between the decline in our student body and the decline in our faculty is about 22%. 22% is the number that we looked at in terms of the faculty retrenchment that we have done. That's part of the educational market alignment plan that we've discussed and that we've answered the questions of the analyst. That educational market alignment plan took into account things that we heard through many campus-wide meetings that we had over the course of about 6 to 8 months across the campus. We took into account suggestions and the financial aspects of the athletics department, our operations, non-personnel operations budget, our personnel budget that is non-faculty or faculty operations budget, and every other aspect of the university. And the plan that we came up with addressed every aspect of the university and provided cuts to every aspect of the university. Those cuts have already started to pay dividends for the university. The purpose of the cuts was not simply to cut for cut's sake, but it was to cut in order to create a surplus that could be used to reinvest in the future of the university, to reinvest strategically in the university's future. What we have done is started the current fiscal year in July of 24, $7.7 million in structural deficit. We are at the end of February. By the middle of February, we had turned that $7.7 million structural deficit to about a $3 million structural surplus currently. And we expect that to continue next year with about a $3.3 million structural surplus, of course, excluding the budget cut that we expect to receive for fiscal 26, which will be a cut of about $3.1 million to our state funding. That $3.1 million cut will be able to be handled with that $3.3 million previously projected budget surplus that we have been able to get. So we are in good shape as a university to deal with the belt tightening that we all have to deal with in this coming fiscal year. We are supportive of the governor's budget and look forward to implementing whatever changes we need at the university while not impacting our students. As the analyst has mentioned, we have gone through a retrenchment process. academic speak for elimination of faculty appointments. And we have concluded that process. We are still going through the appeals process for some of the faculty that were affected. We initially had put out numbers that were expected through that faculty retrenchment of 45 faculty positions, tenure track and tenured positions that would have to be eliminated. That number of 45, by the way, equates to that 22% delta between the number of faculty that we retained on our employment status and the number of students that had declined over that decade that Sarah Baker mentioned earlier. So that was our worst case scenario. We applied all kinds of savings that we were able to get through retirements and phased retirements, what are referred to as transitional terminal leave agreements. And what we were able to do is drive that number from 45 to 7. 7 faculty positions, 3 full-time non-tenure track positions, and 1 tenure track and 3 tenure track and 1 tenure position will be eliminated in order to create the savings. None of those savings, again, let me repeat, none of those savings take effect in fiscal 25. So out of that $3 million surplus that we have right now, none of that surplus comes from the faculty retrenchment. But we do expect to see almost $4.8 million in faculty retrenchment savings in fiscal 27, a little over $3 million next year in fiscal 26 as a result of all this. All of that was done without eliminating a single program at the university and not affecting any students' progress to graduation or programs that they are taking. So we think we have done a pretty good job of managing the challenges that we were dealt, and we have, I think, a very optimistic future ahead of us at Frostburg State University. The only other item I want to mention is actually, in the scheme of things, a relatively small dollar item. It is the Mary Clapsaddle Scholarship. It's a $200,000 scholarship. It was an amount put into last year's budget in the current fiscal year as an endowment to a scholarship fund that Mary Clapsaddle created. Some of you may know that Mary Clapsaddle was a longtime state employee, worked for the legislature, actually was a government relations professional both for Johns Hopkins and for Frostburg State University. Of which she was a graduate. Mary died about 1.5 years ago, and the legislature, certain members of the legislature saw fit to create an endowment fund to be added to her existing endowment fund at Frostburg State. The language of that appropriation is such that we will need to spend all of that money in the current fiscal year rather than add it to the endowment and have that money available for student scholarships in perpetuity. So we ask that that be corrected in the budget. So other than that, members of the committee, Mr. Vice Chair, I'm happy to elaborate on any of the aspects of our testimony or to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Appreciate that testimony. Any questions from the committee? Delegate Forbes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for being here. And you have certainly weathered a storm and come out the other end of it looks like. And that's good. Could you talk a little bit about your graduate program, your pharmaceutical graduate program with West Virginia?
Yes, we actually have 2 programs with West Virginia. As all of you know, the closest flagship institution to Frostburg State is West Virginia University. It's an hour away. And we have 2 articulation agreements with both the School of Pharmacy in West Virginia and the Osteopathic School of Medicine in West Virginia, where we can have students who graduate from FSU move directly into either of those 2 schools, assuming, of course, they have the GPA required to do that. We're at the beginning of both those programs, but so far they're both going very well.
Well, thank you. And do you consider that in your undergraduate a competitor university because of its proximity and what it has to offer? Like,
Yeah.
do you lose a lot of students? Like, are you the second choice for people?
The reality is we don't get a lot of students from West Virginia because the tuition rates are such that we can't really compete with them. Even if we were to offer in-state tuition, it's still higher than West Virginia in-state tuition. So we are competitors to them, but they're not really competitors to us for that reason. We don't lose students very much to West Virginia. We gain students mostly from Pennsylvania and obviously from other parts of Maryland. But we don't lose a lot of Western Maryland students to West Virginia, some, but not as much as you would expect.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today.
Sure, thank you.
And your testimony and your work.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions from the committee? Appreciate that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for traveling down. We do owe you a visit soon, so we're going to journey our way there too. Absolutely, we appreciate that. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. And there was a Denise Murphy on here as well for Frostburg.
Denise actually works for Troy.
Okay, all right. Got it. Didn't want to miss no one. Greatly appreciate that. Concludes our budget hearing for Frostburg State University. Now going to University of Maryland Eastern Shores, and we're bringing back our analyst Kelly Norton.
Thank you. And we're going to start on page 4. Exhibit 1 shows total undergraduate enrollment and category changes from fall 2019 to 2024. Total undergraduate enrollment increased by 199 students from fall 2023 to 2024. As is illustrated in the exhibit, first-time full-time students experienced a third consecutive increase, growing 10.6% in fall 2024. Exhibit 2 on page 5 documents the changes in undergraduate applications. As illustrated in the exhibit, the number of applications increased from fall 2024 by 12.2% to approximately 9,200. The yield rate, or the number of students who actually enrolled from that total, increased to 13% in fall 2024 compared to the previous fall. The acceptance rate of 90%, the green line, was also the highest rate recorded over this period. Moving to student performance, Exhibit 3 on page 6 provides the second and third year retention rates for full-time, first-time students. The second year retention rate has rebounded with the 2021 cohort, but has fallen in 2022 cohort to 65.4%. The third year retention rate mirrors the second year retention rates and saw an increase to 54.2% for the 2021 cohort. Exhibit 4 on page 6 provides the 4- and 6-year graduation rates for first-time, full-time students. As shown in the exhibit, the 4-year graduation rate has remained below 20% since the 2015 cohort. The 6-year graduation rate has increased to 39% for the 2018 cohort. The president should discuss the Eastern Shore strategies to improve graduation rates. Exhibit 5 on page 8 provides the 8-year graduation rate by Pell and non-Pell recipient status. Both non-Pell and Pell recipient transfer students, whether full-time or part-time, were more likely to graduate within 8 years at Eastern Shore than their first-time full-time counterparts. Exhibit 6 on page 9 shows the estimated cost of attendance versus the average net price for full-time in-state students by income level between fiscal 2021 to 2023. In fiscal 2023, the average net price was $14,016 less than the cost of attendance. The exhibit also shows the cost of attendance will vary depending on income level. For example, fiscal 2023, it cost a student $10,634 with a family income of under $30,000, but $22,204 for a student with a family income of over $110,000. Exhibit 7 on page 10 shows the amount of institutional aid awarded and total dollar amount of awards provided by category. The total number of institutional awards increased 58.6% between fiscal 2018 to fiscal 2024. Merit scholarships aid accounted for 40.3% of institutional aid in fiscal 2024, up from 29% in fiscal 2023. UMES should discuss the reason for the increased focus on merit scholarships compared to need-based aid in fiscal 2024 and whether this is expected to continue. Taking a closer look at the role financial aid plays in student success, Exhibit 8 on page 11 shows a comparison of the 6-year graduation rate for students who receive aid and those who do not. Overall, whether a first-time student or a community college transfer, those who receive aid graduated at higher rates, but community college transfer students outperformed first-time students. The U.S. Department of Education reports the median debt for graduates by field of study in an effort to give students a better picture of outcomes at the program level. Exhibit 9 on page 12 illustrates that the median debt of students range from just below $17,000 for engineering majors to $31,000 for computer and information science majors. Computer and information science majors had the highest median earnings at $85,000. Moving to the budget, Exhibit 10 on page 14 provides the budget changes for unrestricted funds by program from fiscal 2024 to 2025. The largest dollar change was in operation and maintenance of plant, which increased by $2.4 million. Spending on institutional aid support also increased, growing by $1.8 million. Scholarship spending decreases $1.9 million. UMES should discuss why spending on scholarships and fellowships is expected to drop by 24% in fiscal 2025. The proposed fiscal 2026 budget found in Exhibit 11 on page 16 includes $3.7 million in salary adjustments and $9 million in HBCU settlement funds. In total, when excluding state pay-go funds, UMES total state fund allocation decreases $0.6 million or 0.8% relative to the adjusted fiscal 2025 working appropriation. When excluding the fiscal 2025 salary increases, state support decreases $3.1 million or 3.9%. The president should comment on how the institution will address the reduction in state support. Exhibit 12 on page 17 provides a breakdown of unrestricted revenues by source and total unrestricted funds. The ratios for these levels remain roughly stable. In fiscal 2026, the state funds account for 51% of unrestricted funds. UMES anticipates total unrestricted funds to grow to $137.3 million in the 2026 allowance. The personnel data for the university is found on page 18, which identifies that as of December 31st, 2024, the university had over 79.36 positions vacant above the expected turnover amount. The president should comment on the high vacancy rate, efforts to reduce vacant positions, and the effects that the vacancies are having on the college's ability to meet its goals. The DLS operating budget recommended actions are found on page 19, which is to see the University System of Maryland overview for system-wide recommendations. Page 20 includes an update on the new Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any question for our analysts? All righty. We want to welcome our president, Anderson, from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Greatly to see you and your team.
It's a pleasure to see you as well, Mr. Vice Chair.
Absolutely. Turn it over to you.
Thank you. And let me start by saying, first of all, I like this magic. You know, the red light just comes on automatically. I love it. I'm going to work on that at the university, but turning them off. But for the record, I'm Heidi Millia Anderson, the 16th president of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And it is my honor to be here today to provide testimony and to respond to the analyst questions. Before I begin that, my colleagues who are here with me today, first of all, to my right is Mr. Wade Henley. He is our Vice President for Administration and Finance. And to my left is our Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Experience, both very experienced vice presidents. Also with me is the first gentleman, my husband, Mr. Leon Roberts. And in spirit and on virtual is our Government Affairs Director, former Senator Jim Mathias. And let me begin by saying, Delegate Vice Chair and members of this particular committee, I want to first of all start by thanking you on behalf of all of our faculty, our staff, and our students. And we want to thank the governor as well, both the former Governor Hogan and also Governor Moore. And the reason we want to thank you is because of the past support that you have shown to our institution on a regular basis, but more importantly, also the support that you show to our system, the University System of Maryland. I also want to thank Kelly Norton. She has provided a very detailed analysis. She has learned our university, and she has taken time to ask thorough questions and receive our feedback in a very positive way. So it's a very collaborative relationship, and we appreciate that. I also want to thank Delegate Karen Tolles and also the other House delegates who are introducing at this time House Bill 941. This is a bill that is designed to provide additional funding to UMES as your 1890 land-grant institution in the state of Maryland. We appreciate that you understand the importance of land-grant institutions, the history behind these institutions that is under the Morrill Act of 1862, as well as the second Morrill Act of 1890. And I want to point out to you also, your Black History Moment only forgot to mention it, this is the 135th anniversary of the second Morrill Act, which we will be actively celebrating at our institution. Finally, I want to point out it is a pleasure to us that you recognize that we are a top 10 public HBCU. And again, we are your land-grant HBCU. At this time, I want to provide a little bit of background, and then I'll answer the analyst questions. The reason we thank the full General Assembly and the governors is because of the HBCU settlement funds. And even though the analysts did not ask us, what are you doing with those funds, President, I felt that you would want to have an update. And so I'm going to briefly give you a quick update as to what we're doing with the HBCU settlement funds. We have used those funds to provide first scholarships to students. We have then also used funds to enhance student success support services, that things like bringing in a retention specialist for each one of our schools, adding other advisors and tutors. And finally, we have used those funds, well, not finally, because we used them in other ways as well, but the final one I will state today is we have used them to develop unique, high-demand degree programs. Those programs that would impact the workforce in the state of Maryland, and especially on the Eastern Shore. We have added a number of degree programs such as sports medicine, digital media, our physician assistant program, but one of which that I want to give you the update on today is our proposed Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. And the reason I want to do that is because I'm sure you probably have questions about it that didn't come out, but then this way gives you a brief update. I am pleased to say to you today that with the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program, we have received internal and external state approval levels at all levels. The internal approvals throughout our system, the external approvals from the state. And we are now in the accreditation process. That process is a multi-phase process, and we have been passing each and every phase very favorably. We really appreciate that, and that is through the American Medical Veterinary Council of Education. We look forward to their next visit. They recently visited our campus back in the fall semester. We received a report from them from that visit earlier this month in February. We're still in February, right? Okay. And that report was very favorable, and we are responding to it. And we know that the next step in that multi-phase process is for them to pay another visit to us. And so we are working through the concerns, the directions that they gave us from that report. We wanted you I wanted to remind you, and our campus wants me to remind you, how our new vet program is going to be different and unique. We feel as the first program in the state of Maryland, the first fully funded program, that you would want to be clear about the uniqueness. First of all, we're going to be unique in the sense that we will be a 3-year distributed clinical model versus a 4-year. Why is that important? You can imagine, if you can get students in the door and out in 3 years, it's going to do 2 quick things. It's going to, 1, have less debt on those students, and 2, it's going to put them into the workforce faster, a workforce that is direly in need of veterinarians across this country. We know that we can do this model very, very well. Why? Because for 25 years, we have been doing this model with several of our other health profession programs. Our pharmacy program, our physician assistant program that is new, and our physical therapy program. And in all 3 of those programs, in our other programs, but especially those 3, the students, as you know, have to take a national licensure exam, and they are passing at 95, 98, and 100% pass rate. So it shows you that we have the quality in those programs. We understand that type of distributed model. The other thing, the other place where it will actually be a second uniqueness to this program, has a rural focus. Of course, it will train veterinarians who could practice anywhere, but we're going to key in on a rural focus because that will give us a little bit of uniqueness, and obviously our location helps in that regard, but it adds to the fact that nationally, veterinarians are really needed in many areas, but especially in your rural areas. And the third unique feature of that program is going to be the fact that it's going to have an interdisciplinary professional health education focus. We have 8 health profession programs on our campus at this time. So this will add to that, and it will allow those students to work together to become really connected, but also give what's needed with health care from an interprofessional. And our new dean for that program has the concept of One Health in the future, perhaps creating a practitioner who could be handling patient care as well as animal care in an environment. And think about that, and that's his vision. We're pleased that with that particular program, we have received national interest. Companies such as Mars, Vet Health, the one that creates all of our candy bars for us if you like chocolate, they are the largest veterinary practice in the country and in the world. and they have offered 2,400 locations for our students to be able to do clinical rotations with them. We have an MOU with them as well as with IDEX. IDEX is the largest veterinary diagnostic company in the country, and they are going to provide us with virtual faculty, and both of those companies are going to offer jobs to our students when we're finished. You have my test, and now I want to turn to the analysis questions. You have my testimony that we sent to you, so I will not review that because you've seen it, but I will just highlight a few things. How are we improving graduation rates? Kelly, thank you for asking us that. We are working very diligently at doing that, and we are doing that in a number of ways, increasing tutoring, increasing retention specialists that I mentioned earlier, but also with what we call behavior modification of our students, getting them to understand when you enroll, if you take at least 15 credits per semester, guess what? Times 2 every year, you can get out in 4 years, and we're giving them incentives and working with them to do that. The second question she asked was, why did the merit scholarships increase in 2024? We were pleased to have the last 4 years increased enrollment growth. And with increased enrollment growth, as you heard the analyst say, comes challenges. One of those challenges happened to be the fact that you have to look at institutional aid. You also heard her say students who receive institutional aid are likely to be retained and graduate. And so what happened, we decided that we wanted to be able to award high honor students even more than what they were before. And so we have we have a new program that was awarded to us, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. And those are really high achieving students. We want to give them the necessary scholarships that they needed, and also increased with our honor student. In the same sense, why did spending on scholarships drop in 2025? Well, we budgeted, if you can imagine, our budgeted, if you look on page 14 of table 10, it shows the budgeted amount versus the actual. And with that 4th consecutive year of enrollment growth, of course, we were not anticipating that. The budgeted amount was different. And so you see there the $856,000 and a $1.1 million that we took from the HBCU funding that really contributed to that 24% decrease. And finally, how will we address the 5% budget cut in this next fiscal year? We fully understand that the state is in a dire budget situation at this time, and we will do our part to make sure that we help with that. But we will not impact our students. And so that cut will be covered by reducing some of our part-time personnel. We're going to use some of our own self-funded facilities renewal and some vacant, and we will not fill vacant positions. Finally, you asked about the vacancies. For us, it is difficult a little bit in Somerset County where we are to really fill positions, and we work very, very hard at that to get high-quality talent. And you noticed in the rest of my testimony the explanation there. And let me just finally conclude the way I began. At the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, the VET program is a program whose idea has finally come in its time. And we will graduate students who will serve all over the state. And I want to say to all of you delegates, we receive students from all of your particular counties. My written testimony tells you about Donovan and Kayla and Tyler. Those are not the only students that we have. Vice Chair, in your county alone, we have over 25 pre-vet students. In others of your counties, there are a number of students that we could tell you who are in our pre-vet program in each of your counties. And so I leave you with this. One, thank you for focusing on that program for us, and we appreciate that it's in the governor's budget to help with that, the building of that. I leave you with the fact what you don't want is students like Gabrielle, who came to us several years ago from Prince George's County, to have to leave and go to the state of Indiana to become a doctor of veterinary medicine. All of the students who come to us, and we get over 80 in our pre-vet program, they should have the opportunity to stay here in the state of Maryland and to be able to become a doctor of veterinary medicine, and then finally to be able to transform the lives like we teach them to do and work and practice whenever they want. So we are grateful for your support, and we thank you very much, and thank you for having me here and my team. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
We appreciate that, Dr. Anderson. It was a great testimony, and we're excited to see how that school comes about and what more we can do in terms of pushing more students in that direction, because it's vital, and we're looking forward to that being a pillar of the state. So we greatly appreciate that. Any questions from our committee?
Just a quick question.
Yep.
I'm sorry, you could.
Yep.
Does that mean like equine and like livestock as opposed to just pets? Is that
It
what you're-
does,
okay.
yes. We have goats and sheep on our campus now, but with the new program, we're going to add cows, and we're going to add horses, because you have to have also, they have to learn every single animal. Most of you know I'm a pharmacist. I only had to learn one animal, the human body. And they have to learn every animal. So we will make sure we have them and on our campus as well. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Oh, that's
And Virginia Tech, are they doing that now there as well?
delegate,
we're-
yes, they are.
so it's- okay,
Yes,
good.
they are. Mhm. Yes.
Delegate Forbes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Anderson. And you complimented us all for the support we've given UMES, but you have shown us great leadership, and we've invested in your vision. So we are all very excited about the veterinary school. I know all of my constituents are, and to have more opportunities and to serve more animals and allow students to go to veterinary school. It's really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Forbes. It's done with a good team, a really good team. Thank you.
Absolutely. Teamwork makes the dream work.
That
so
is
we're excited
correct.
about that. Any other questions from the team? Going once, going twice. That does conclude our budget hearing for University of Maryland Eastern Shores. That also concludes our budget hearing for today. Thank you all for sticking with us. We got one more on Monday, 1 o'clock. See you. Absolutely. The best for last. Y'all have a great weekend. Please be safe, you all.